Climate resiliency is really critical. We know that climate change is occurring. It's occurring now. It's coming in the future. It's one of the great challenges that I think we'll face and will impact our work and our lives in the coming years. So if we don't plan accordingly and take it into consideration as we're doing all of this great work on our natural areas and on our communities, a lot of that work could be undone or be sort of countered by these increasing challenges that we might face as a result of climate change.
Shirley Heinze has been working on several new projects to look more closely at how to improve climate resiliency through our stewardship program and through all of the management that we do on our nature preserves. We're looking at things like monitoring sensitive species and sensitive habitats more, removing invasive species that are expected to be more prevalent in our future, watching out for new invasive species, mitigating flood risks with the recreation of wetlands. These sorts of things aren't a silver bullet to help solve climate change, but they help improve the resiliency of the nature that we have so that it can be more adaptable when climate changes happen.
More recently, we have embarked on establishing wetlands, putting best management practices on the ground on a few of our project areas in the east branch of the Little Calumet River. To do that, we need to have a good understanding of where wetlands could potentially be recreated and where those critical points within our project area are that where you have lots of nutrient loading. And if you are able to create a wetland that serves as a sponge for those nutrients and slow down the water, that can have tremendous benefits on the water quality.
So here in what we call the Calumet region, Northwest Indiana, the name says it all. The Little Calumet River is part of the Calumet River system, and it's integral to our heritage, our identity here in Northwest Indiana.
Being on the Little Cal, you feel like you're completely disconnected from the hustle and the bustle and the roads and the railways and everything that you think of when you're driving around Northwest Indiana. There's not many places where you can go out for 3-4 hours on the water and really not see much development at all.
The Little Calumet River in particular is sort of a gem where it ties together and flows through these more agricultural rural landscapes into our more urban communities. It's really critical to preserve the corridor of the river in order to protect the river.
As we have climate change, we have much more frequent flooding issues, and if you don't have places for the floodwaters to go into these forested wetlands, it really has a direct impact on the people who live and the people in the towns who live along these areas. So those are really kind of our kidneys for Lake Michigan. Our wetlands act as these filters for pollutants. They purify the water before the water goes out into the lake. People are drinking the lake water.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions about wetlands are that they're just waste places, that they're useless in the landscape. And if you look at some of the real important functions and values that a wetland has and their importance to our health, to the health of drinking water, water quality, stormwater attenuation, a lot of people don't give wetlands the respect that they deserve and understand that there are more things to wetlands than, say, a habitat place or a green space. A wetland is a biological system where plants and animals have adapted and thrive in inundated or saturated soil conditions. Wetlands are sinks for carbon at a time when we have too much carbon in our atmosphere, and they absorb and store stormwater and provide that stormwater back into the aquifer for groundwater recharge.
It helps buffer it when you have these frequent 100-year floods every year or two. You really kind of need to have these natural areas in order for us to remain resilient.
Protecting land is critical to protecting water quality. The two are so interrelated that it can't really be understated. Several years ago, a number of partners, including Shirley Heinze Land Trust, did come together to collaboratively develop a watershed management plan for the Little Calumet River East Branch. But the trouble with these plans is nobody wants to see them sit on a shelf, and they don't go very far unless you have partners like Shirley Heinze there to lead the way and work with other partners to implement the plan. So a watershed management plan includes many different components, from directly, as Shirley Heinze of course does, protecting, preserving, and restoring our high quality natural areas. But I really commend Shirley Heinze Land Trust for looking beyond that traditional protection of our high quality areas to looking at the fringe areas of the watershed. And those are really the areas where the pollution comes from.
Shirley Heinze Land Trust has embarked on developing an ag strategy in our east branch of the Little Calumet River corridor that would help us protect wetlands and potentially ag lands that are in the vicinity of the land that we've currently protected.
So recently there's been a big push with land trusts looking into preserving farmland. And so there's farm bill easement programs available right now that require a third party, which can be a land trust or a farmland protection alliance, to work with rural residents and farmland owners to ensure that the ground remains in agricultural purposes opposed to development. Shirley Heinze is needed for some of these programs to essentially act in the best interest of private landowners to ensure that farmland is protected and conservation practices are carried out in a manner that ensures the livelihood of the farmer working that ground for future generations.
Any opportunity that you might have to work with agricultural producers to do things that help with stormwater runoff, water quality, how we apply pesticides, how we apply herbicides, how those chemicals get into our drain tile system if it's an agricultural piece of property and out to our rivers, creeks, and streams is really important. Convincing ag producers to maybe take some of these hydric soils that are drained, that are less productive, that are difficult to farm, and convert those back to open spaces, green spaces, wetlands, or even wetland restoration in some of those areas, I think not only are beneficial for the producer, certainly beneficial to water resources. If we don't make some changes, whether it's for prime agricultural farmland protection, or whether it's for improving water quality prior to having water leaving our farm fields or our developments or our streets or our highways, we just end up with more of the same. We end up with continued degradation in water quality, continued problems with flooding. Things don't get better unless we can continue to evolve and help make some of these changes.
It's really important not just to protect the wetlands that we have remaining, but also to restore the wetlands that we've lost. In the Little Calumet East Branch corridor, there's a significant amount of land that has been converted from wetland to different land uses. Shirley Heinze has really been proactive in planning for the restoration of some of those lands, really working with agricultural landowners to see if there are areas in the watershed that can be restored to wetland to restore some of those benefits that we mentioned about wetlands, from water filtration, flood storage, and really benefit everyone both upstream and downstream.